So today we're going to talk about how a bill becomes a law. So whenever we're looking at how laws are going to become a thing in our country, if we're going to have the Affordable Care Act, or if we're going to have a universal gun laws, how exactly does that even happen? So that's where we're going to be focusing our efforts today. But before we get started, we do need to look at some terms. An act, a law, and legislation are all the same thing. It's a legal binding rule. So the Affordable Care Act or the Brady Law, or if we're talking about legislation, they are all going to mean the same thing. A bill is an idea. So if we're looking at the Brady Bill, that had not become a law yet. We're just talking about a Brady Bill. A statute is a state law, and an ordinance is a local law. All right, so to kind of give you the big picture, what we're going to do is we're going to start up here at the very top of our paper, and we are going to, now we could go on either side of these. However, what we're going to do is we're going to start on the left side, we're going to work our way down, and then we're going to come back up, go down this side, and then we're going to come over here. That's our plan. All right, so first, if we're going to have a new law, we need to have an idea. So say it's really concerning to me that we are allowing our youth of Americans, to listen to with earphones. We're allowing children whose ears are not fully developed to listen to music at incredibly high levels in their inside of their ears. This is very worrisome to me. So I want to create a law. And with that law, because I would be considered a constituent, so I'm just a representative, or I'm just being represented by somebody else. But I could write this law out and I could send it to my congressman if I wanted to. So I could suggest a law. Now, I could also belong to an interest group. An interest group is a group of people who have a common theme and something that they're fighting for. And so, say I wanted to make it so that teachers only had to work 4 days a week. If I belong to the National Educators Association, the NEA, then I could suggest a law there. Or representatives could, so Walter B. Jones could suggest a law, or our president, like Obama suggested the Affordable Care Act, which a lot of people call Obamacare. So once we have an idea, it has to be introduced. It has to be put into a hopper, which, let me show you a picture of that hopper real quick. And so once it gets put into the hopper, it's then going to be, let me see this back. It needs to be given a number. And so this is going to be called HR, which stands for House of Representatives 501. The one before this one was called 500. The one after it's going to be called 502. So they're in numerical order. And then after it gets pulled from the hopper and someone says, yes, I think that's a great bill. So the guy who pulls it from the hopper, by the way, that's going to be Paul Ryan, or Speaker of the House. So if he says, yes, we're going to have this bill, they're going to send it to committee. Now, the committee can do one of 5 things. They could hold a hearing on it. And a hearing is going to allow people to testify to kind of go and advocate for it. Someone like Christopher Reeve, he used to play Superman, and he fell off a horse, or was thrown off a horse, and when he did, he was paralyzed from the neck down. And so he would go and he would testify at these hearings to advocate for stem cell research, which is something we're going to talk about later. They could keep it the exact same. So say I wanted the law to prevent children 10 and under from listening to headphones. They could say, you know what, this is a great law, we're going to keep it the exact same. They could change it. They could try to say, you know what, 10 is way too old, let's lower it to 5 and under. That could not listen to headphones. They could outright say, this is so ridiculous. No, let's toss this puppy. And so they would toss my earphone bill in the trash, or they could pigeonhole it. Pigeonhole means we're going to set it aside in the hopes that everybody is just going to forget about it and then it'll die. So here's a committee right here. Looks super fascinating, and they get to eat while they're doing it. And plus, there's that corny guy standing back in the corner taking a picture of somebody taking a picture, which is the. And then there's a link of a public hearing that you can go to, which you can look up more recent ones if you wanted to. This is a very, very sad video of a Sandy Hook father who's pleading to have guns taken or prevented from being like more gun laws is what he's asking for. But there's other ones just in case you don't particularly care for that one. Now, if it makes it out of committee, it could die in committee, but if it makes it out of committee, then they're going to send it to the House floor. And this is where debate is going to be limited by the House Rules Committee to 30 minutes. And so they do not allow you to go longer than 30 minutes. And then once everybody gets done debating, then you're going to vote according to the House Rules Committee's terms. And if it passes the House floor, this is what the House floor looks like, and then we have our Speaker of the House. He's standing up here, and people have to come up and they have to put their vote. Actually, they don't have to come up anymore. They actually have little things at their seats where they can vote yes or they can vote no, depending on whether or not they agree with the bill or don't agree. So if it makes it out of the House floor, then they'll send it up to the Senate. Now, someone has to say, yeah, I'll sponsor this. And then they name it what's a logical number that goes with, so in this example we have S220, and so the next one would be S221. Once it gets sponsored, it would then go to committee where one of 5 things could happen. They could hold a hearing on it in which people come and they testify. They could keep it the exact same. They could change it and say, absolutely not. We should never limit teenagers to limiting our being able to hear music. Every age should be able to hear music. And at whatever volume you want, you can't really restrict that. They could outright just say kill it and just say, well, this is silly. Or they could pigeonhole it, and pigeonhole means to set it aside in the hopes that people are going to forget about it and it's just going to die. If it makes it out of committee, then people are going to debate on it. Now, in the Senate, the debate is unlimited. That means that they can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk as much as they want. Another way to say that is filibuster. If you filibuster, you're trying to kill the bill. You're trying to get people to leave, and once people leave, then you'll vote on it. And, well, if nobody's there to vote yes on it, then the bill dies. There's only one way to stop somebody from talking and talking and talking and talking, aka a filibuster. And that one way is to have a 2/3 cloture vote. And so there's 100 people in the Senate, and so you've got to have 66% of them, or 66 of them, say, yes, we need to get this guy or girl to go sit down. The longest filibuster on record is 24 hours and 18 minutes, and it was done by a senator named Strom Thurmond, who's a very, very old senator, and he was protesting. He did not want the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to pass. There were a couple of them. He did not want that Civil Rights Act to pass, and so he got up there and he read the Washington, D.C. phone book. Because you don't have to read on anything in particular. You can read whatever you want to. And so he got up there and he was like, John Smith, 555-1111. Janet Smith, 555, and just sat there and just read the Washington, D.C. phone book for 24 hours and 18 minutes. And no, he can't go anywhere. He's got to do it. So that was pretty incredible. And there was a lot of other drama, but I can tell you more about that if you wanted to know. So here's the Senate floor. If you notice, it's not nearly as crowded as the House, and it's because there's only 100 people here versus the 435 people in the House. So if it makes it out of the Senate floor, then if you have 2 different versions of the bill. So the House, in my example that I've been giving you, the House said that they're going to lower the age restriction down to 5 and below cannot listen to music or cannot listen to with headphones. And the Senate said no, that you are not going to restrict anybody from listening to music. So this means that we need to meet to have a compromise, not a compromise, a compromise of this bill in order to make sure that we're going to have the same version. So they're going to meet and they're going to come up with a solution, and so they're going to say nobody below the age of 3. That babies should not have earphones in because it's too damaging to their ears. So then what ends up happening, let me back up. There we go. what ends up happening then is if once they come up with a compromise here, then that means that they've got to send it all the way back through the House. And so if the House says we agree 3 years is completely fine, then they'll send it up to the Senate and they'll have to hear it again. And if they agree, then it'll finally come over here to the final approval. Now what happens if they don't agree? Then they'll have to do the conference committee again, and then they'll have to send it all the way back to the House, all the way back to the House, and then all the way back to the Senate again. And then they do a conference committee, come up with an agreement. What happens if they still don't agree? All the way back to the House and all the way back to the Senate. So this can be a very, very long process, but they want to make sure that they get the very best bills possible. We want the best laws, so they do what they have to do. So after the conference committee, once we have a compromise and it goes back through, then that means that both the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President pro tempore must sign the exact same bill. Once those two sign it, then they're going to send it to the President. And the President can say yes, he likes that bill, and so he's going to sign it. Or he could veto it. Veto, like if your mama vetoed your weekend plans, and that means you are not going anywhere. Veto means no. So this means yes, and this would mean no. Pocket veto means to set it aside in the hopes that it would die. Now remember, the committee can do that, but it's called a pigeonhole. But when the president decides to do it, that is called a pocket veto. And he's just setting it aside in the hopes that the people are going to forget about it, because in that way he doesn't say yes, he doesn't say no, so nobody can really be mad at him because he didn't make a decision, even though he kind of is. A veto, if the president vetoes a bill, that's what these two stars right here mean. You see those two stars? If the president vetoes it, Congress could override the presidential veto, but they have to have 2/3 of each house say we're going to override this. And really, that's kind of a big deal, because once you override the presidential veto, you're kind of probably going to upset him a little, or her a little bit. So it's kind of a big deal. Now, we have a side note. Oh, wait, we got to go through all this. And then only if there's no changes, then you'll have the president sign it. If there are changes, then you have to go back through. All right, side note. Now, how do you decide who's going to hear the bills in committee? It's based on seniority, not based on, oh, well, I'm 50 and you're 49. No, that's not quite how that works. Who's been in the Senate or who's been in the Congress the longest is going to be very influential on who's going to have the most power. All right, so that's all we have for today.